Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We've seen Pakistan's unfailing and unflinching support as far as climate damage is concerned. Of course, the Prime Minister's participation today, and he's going to address tomorrow. But overall, his participation and the way that he has said that immediate utilization of the climate damage fund, I think, is an extremely important part of this climate damage reparation, which has remained very close to our hearts as far as Pakistan as a country is concerned. Of course, it's also important, and the Prime Minister also highlighted that Pakistan itself remains probably one of the least emitters of fossil fuel, also contributors to climate damage. Keeping all of that in mind, we will be talking about our overall efforts as far as climate damage towards working towards coming to immediate utilization of this fund. Also overall, as far as climate damage reparation is concerned, and what all countries can work towards doing for those countries that are unfortunately suffering the most from this very real threat of climate damage. A little later on, we'll also be talking about the political situation on the home front as far as Pakistan is concerned. As political parties gear up for the elections, we are seeing of course, more audio leaks. We'll be talking about this also, considering the legal side of it now, and also as far as the major political parties are concerned, as far as joinings there are concerned, and what kind of a trend can we see as overall as far as political parties are concerned as we get nearer to the elections. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Zia Ul Haque Shamsi, who's a senior analyst. Thank you so much for being with us today. We also have with us Dr. Jamil Khan, and a little later on we'll have other guests. Before I go to Zia Sahab here, I'm going to go to Dr. Jamil. Dr. Jamil, overall, as far as climate reparation is concerned, the fact that this fund, has been formed, I mean, we have to, contend that there is a huge effort behind it, and Pakistan is in no small way responsible for this. Would you agree with that?
Oh, that's right. Pakistan has been advocating, in fact, and advocating it vehemently. Not only Pakistan, but last visit of Secretary General of United Nations, Mr. Guterres. He, in such a strong words, he had advocated the case of Pakistan when we lost about 90% of our kacha houses and about 60% of our pakka houses during one of the floods there. And imagine, 90% of the emission takes place it's in Europe and the developed countries, industrialized nation. Right? And we've been doing a lot of climate diplomacy. And even this current visit of our caretaker Prime Minister, Mr. Khakar, I think tomorrow is going to cover up this. And even before that, he had been able to have a shake hand meeting with King Charles, who in very strong words has advocated for the underdeveloping countries and their suffering on the account of climate change. Now imagine the United States is responsible for about 40% of the excess emission, and EU is responsible about 29% of the emission, and Pakistan only 1%. And just imagine the way Secretary General last time had said that nature is taking revenge from the humanity, but they have chosen the wrong target, and Pakistan and countries like Pakistan were the wrong target, as a matter of fact. And that's what today King Charles also mentioned, the name of Pakistan and the Bangladesh, where we had about 33 million Pakistanis who were impacted by the flood last time. And all this, I think, is going to be covered by the caretaker Prime Minister. And last time, even 1/3 of the country was submerged, and over 95,000 square miles, was inundated by the floods. 400,000 cubic water.
Right. I want to go on and talk more about this, of course, as far as climate damage is concerned, as far as our contribution, of course, being less than 1%, of course, suffering so much on account of that. Nevertheless, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to Zia Saab here. Dr. Zia, overall, of course, you know, we've made a lot of effort. I think, you know, it wouldn't be wrong to say, and Jamil Saab, I think, agreed with me there as far as the, you know, the formulation of this fund is concerned. The Prime Minister, of course, talked about having it immediately available. How much of a possibility do you see of that happening? Because countries like us, who are, you know, of course, suffering on such a massive scale, and we have our own economic challenges, for us, of course, it's a paramount, you know, it's of paramount importance that we get access to these funds for those people who have suffered so much, for people without houses as a result of the climate damage, the floods we saw very recently. Do you think there's a possibility of that?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mahrukh. Very important subject, very close to our heart, because we are suffering the most.
Yes.
One of the most damaged country, contributing only less than 1%, but getting the brunt because of climate change. Initially, people did not understand what climate change is, and that is why it took very long for the countries like us to make them understand that we are suffering because of you. As Jamil Saab said, actual contributors are in the developed countries, but suffering, we are suffering.
And the injustice of it is that, you know, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, as you are asking about the establishment of fund and its disbursement, please remember, Pakistan's voice is not that low or that small. You would recall that during COVID also, Pakistan called for the deferment of payments of the loans from the developing countries and all, and it was accepted. So if we present our case in a logical manner, because we have moral authority on the subject, we have been calling upon the developed states that we are suffering because of you. It is good that now they have started to accept. And I am very confident that the way Pakistan is presenting its case, and inshallah tomorrow in PM's speech, the way it will be presented, I am very confident that we will get sufficient fund, not only we, other developing countries also,
yes,
because we need them immediately for our capacity building. Because there are a number of domains where we have suffered and we need to do capacity building of NDMA. Let me tell you, NDMA is doing a great job, and it is helping PDMAs to come on line at the same. They have even established a think tank to look ahead for the climate damage, and they are doing a phenomenal job, but they need funding and they need to build their own capacity, and that can be done only through the help of the UN and other regional organizations, because the state is definitely very serious. The Pakistan state is very serious in tackling this menace. I call it a weapon of universal destruction, the climate, because it erodes soil, it creates unemployment, it creates migration, it creates child abuses, because people are displaced, they don't have place to live. So there are so many associated ills with this particular aspect that I have started referring it as a weapon of universal destruction. So if from your forum I want to give this message to the stakeholders, that even if you are contributing and if you are unable to control your emissions, please help the developing countries at least financially so that they can fight their case.
And COP does that. I mean, it provides a platform for countries to engage. It's a platform,
and this year's actually their objectives are three-pronged. One is industrial decarbonization, of absolutely important, accelerating the just green energy transition and innovation of climate action.
I want to come to this, Doctor. There's one, of course, one way of, we can talk about reparation. We can talk about the fact that there's very real climate damage, and for that we need redressal. But on the other hand, there's also about the future. We need a plan. We need there to be, checks in place for there to be, not this repetitive, the kind of repetitive damage that we are seeing and the suffering that's coming to countries like us. For that, I want to talk about this. Of course, a large part of COP is also that. Isn't that true? And we talk about renewable energies, things like this. I mean, how effective do you think these are going to be able to combat the damage that might come our way in the future?
Yeah, actually, this was what you are saying now was the part of the agenda of COP27 last year.
Okay.
Because they determined that we must keep the rise of temperature below 1.5 degrees. That is ideal, actually. They are trying to keep it below 2 degrees, but the ideal is 1.5 degrees. Right. So that was determined last time. And also they did the capacity building of the developing states or the more harmed states to absorb the effects of climate change. So that is already there on the agenda.
But is it coming to, again, the question is for us, another couple of months down the road, we'll be looking at more, more floods and unfortunately the cycle continues for countries like us.
I was actually coming to that. And why did I refer about the NDMA and PDMA's performance and preparation in the last segment? Because they are already looking ahead.
Okay.
Till now, perhaps until very late, they were being reactive. But now they are proactive.
Okay.
And they are going into the domain of prevention now, protection.
This is the home front. This is what we are doing.
This is the home front. All they need is to be beefed up with adequate funding from the international organizations so that they build their capacity, because they have to look after this. I mean, Pakistan is not a small country. Secondly, our geography and topography is such that we are dealing with the glaciers in the north and warm waters in the south.
Right.
So the effect is multi-dimensional.
Fair enough.
The heavy rains in Balochistan or up north creates havoc.
We are particularly vulnerable. There's no doubt about that. Let me go to Jamil Sab. I'll come back to you. Jamil Sab, if you heard Dr. Zia here, he's talking about, our vulnerability particularly, and also the fact that, for us, of course, it's not, we're looking at a couple of months down the road, and of course, we're very vulnerable. Even as we talk about, to this kind of damage coming our way again. So with a view to that, of course, when the Prime Minister talks about immediate dispersal of this fund, I'm sure, this is one of those things which are, of course, one of the considerations that is in his mind when he talks about it. In your opinion, with a view to that, how effective is it going to be, when we propagate that there should be that immediate redressal, immediate, dispersal?
Well, immediate dispersal is possible, but the volume of the dispersal has never been 100%. Even in United Nations, once the countries they pledge their contribution, not even 60% pledges are materialized. So one thing, that is the reality, and we have to realize that. But this time, the impact of this COP28 is much higher than the previous COP 27 and preceding conferences. Now, basically, the commitment was made in COP15, where in the Copenhagen, and they were in very strong words in 2009 that agreed to generate the 100 billion funds. But now, as per King Charles, we need much more than that. And there are 140 head of the government and head of the states. They are participating in COP28. So it appears that this time, with the climate diplomacy, multilateral diplomacy, Pakistan being one of the proponent of it, I imagine that this time the proportion of the disbursement, immediate disbursement, could be higher than the previous occasion. If you recall, during the visit of the Secretary General last time, he had gone and he had asked, he had called for the donors conference in which 160 million were pledged, but not even 25% or 30% was materialized. So basically, whenever and whatever is pledged, it's very important that through the climate diplomacy, we are able to, and along with other countries who are
But
vulnerable
Jamil
and
Sahab,
who are
like you are
impacted
saying,
and who have suffered, uh,
like you are
we have
saying,
to really.
Like you are saying, of course, the volume of the dispersal and the fact that, of course, we've had, as far as the Paris Agreement are concerned, things other than, there are instances where we felt that, perhaps that immediate availability of funds may be an issue, and the pledges that have been made in the past have not necessarily been fulfilled. Isn't that true?
Well, that's very much true. In fact, if we look into the agreement, Paris Agreement, 1915, 2015, we would probably realize that they had made very strong commitments of how the funds would be dispersed to the vulnerable countries and how the countries were responsible for the carbon emission, which I just mentioned in my previous segment, how they would really be able to disperse that, collect it and disperse it. But it was very slow at that time. But by 2023, 2030, this time the Secretary General even, rather Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, he has already given about 30 billion, and by 2030 they are aiming to generate $250 billion. But $100 million is already collected according to the Paris Accord, and there is a whole mechanism of disbursement. So I've seen that the mechanism is quite complicated, but with the multilateral diplomacy, I guess that this time we can expect. But again, we should not raise our expectation very high in terms of volume of the disbursement. But definitely, the one thing good has happened. One very positive decision, although it's an imposition of the conditions of IMF, but that's I would take it in a positive direction, that previously we were having a segmented approach of our developmental plan. Planning division would incorporate something and the other provinces would not align their developmental budget. But this time, we have given the undertaking to even IMF, and in our own interest, I think PDMA must have really given its input. We are now going to align all these funds of developmental or any structure we are constructing. It has to be designed and aligned for the climate resilient infrastructure. So that is one very important thing and very important step which has been taken, which has been decided. And now, once we get these funds, and hopefully after this COP28, we should start having release of some funds at a higher speed. And at that time, I believe that we then would be able to incorporate that, our own funds, developmental fund, and incorporate the expected pledges and expected disbursement. And we should incorporate it in the climate resilient infrastructure, may it be road infrastructure, dam infrastructure, or the pavement infrastructure, the houses infrastructure, and all kind of it, including the setup what we have, and which is a complete national disaster plan, which has to really oversee that, and it has to be incorporated in next 5 years. Rather, it should be incorporated in next 20 years plan, as it has to be aligned with even SDG 2030. And SDG, if we go deep into the study of the SDG, there are about 5 to 6 component of the SDG out of 17 points, which also covers the
Right, Jamil sir,
climate
on
change
that note,
in one way or the other. Yes.
let me come back to you, Dr. Zia. What do you hope, as far as, of course, the Prime Minister's address tomorrow, what do you think is one of, those salient points that you think that he will be speaking about?
Yeah, I think he will insist upon
immediate dispersal?
Immediate dispersal, not only for Pakistan, but
for all developing countries.
All the developing countries who have been hit very hard. Actually, what we need to do is perhaps we need to look at the tangible effects of climate and intangible effects. Tangible, people can see that the houses were destroyed and the villages were inundated and all, the buildings were collapsing under flash rains. What about the intangible effects that the society has to take?
Like you're talking about displacement and of course the effect on children.
Emotional disorder, isn't it? The psychosocial effect. Who is responsible for that? Who will recover that? My suggestion here from your forum is that the civil society needs to activate themselves, go into the affected areas, make the documentaries, show it to the world, and tell them the gravity of the situation. Because what people understand out of these forums is that we are asking for money. It is not so. We are just not requesting for money.
But we are talking about, this is, where I think the difference is that we are talking about reparation. We are talking about what is due to us, what the world, those countries that have the funds, that are primarily responsible. Like even Dr. Jamil spoke about, when you talk about the US, I think more than 40%, that is his statistic that he's talking about. And they have, the countries that have the funds, don't they owe it to countries like Pakistan?
Even if they owe it,
help?
Even if they owe it, they will not disperse it unless you hammer them.
Yes, and that is
you
why...
you have to create awareness, you have to create an emergency-like situation, because this is not normal. The intangible effects on the families, on the children, on the elders, I mean, perhaps we are unable to showcase them. We must showcase them at that level where they understand that, oh, it's serious. Perhaps we have not been able to do it. Otherwise, I don't think they are so heartless that they will not come to rescue the people who really need help.
I think in a world, in the world of today, it is perhaps a little naive to say that there are, they're perhaps not heartless. But I guess you're right that we do need to plead our case strongly strongly.
Even if they are heartless, we have to keep on banging them. We have to keep on reminding them.
And that is why we have forums like this.
Absolutely.
Of course. That is the reason why
that's
they're
what
so
the job of the
important.
diplomacy is.
Yes.
That it never sleeps. It never stops till the objective is achieved. So we have to continuously remind them. Civil society must take charge. Government alone cannot do it. Like we make the documentaries against atrocities against the children.
Yes, it is one of, again, you're right, it is one of those issues that we need to focus on, clearly. What about the focus on renewable energy, which is, something that the Prime Minister, again, has been particularly focused on? Do you think it's going to be, it's going to make a lot of difference? Do you think we are moving towards that, or is it going to depend on the kind of the kind of funds that are available to us eventually?
Actually, this is our own job. Okay. We need to do it because we have abundance of, alhamdulillah, the sunlight, etc., the wind,
the natural resources,
the natural resources are there. It is our job to do it. We need to attract people with investments in these sectors, and we should not expect that we will be able to spend anything out of the climate fund on these projects. For these, we need to invite the investors to invest in these. Why? Because Pakistan is energy deficient and we need clean and renewable energy.
Fair enough. On that note, Dr. Jamil, of course, we want to particularly focus on clean energy, as Dr. Saab here is also talking about. But the question is, for us, the challenges are multi-pronged, because of course we have, we are dealing with a challenging economic situation. Also, we are dealing with challenges of attracting investment in the first place. And for us to manage this is clearly, many times more difficult than it may be for other countries. Of course, we want to focus on these areas. Of course, they're extremely important. But again, for us, in the current climate, in the current economic climate, how do you look at that? In attracting investment towards these, these projects that are based on moving towards renewable energy, for example.
No doubt, it's an uphill task. And renewable energy obviously it costs, the initial cost is much higher than the way we are consuming energy, fossil energy in our country. So, but that if once it's incorporated in our 20-year span or 25-year span, or even if we align it, our plan with the decision about what has been taken in COP20 or what's being taken in COP22, 28, that we should align ourselves and go start transiting towards the clean energy. But again, that would take some time. What we need to do is that Article 9, Article 9, the Section 9 of the Paris Accord, Paris Agreement, is very important. We should develop our argument around that, because under that, all the member countries are obliged to do their part and to contribute towards the climate fund. So that is one aspect. And this time, because I personally feel that very top eminent personalities have already spoken about the clean energy and about the switching over or transiting from fossil energy to the clean energy, and also infrastructure development. Personalities like King Charles, personality like Secretary General, personality like the host country, His Highness Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. So, and so many other out of 140 head of the government and head of the states, they are going to speak about it. This time, it is going to really create a lot of ripple and lot of heat around, and that is the time that the affected and impacted country, the vulnerable countries, they pursue it, and they try and draw the focus of the Paris Accord, in which countries are obliged under Article 9 to meet the obligation which they have committed from time to time. So that is one aspect. But our Prime Minister, because this is our stated policy, and last time also we were able to really do a proper climate diplomacy and advocacy. So this time again, our team which has gone there, I would not only hope, but I'm sure that they are going to engage themselves at the multilateral level, and they are going to add value to it, because countries like Bangladesh and the vulnerable countries like Pakistan and other countries, I think their presence over there, that is going to be very.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Thank you for this very valuable input. Dr. Zia, thank you for your very valuable input on this very extremely important topic. Of course, we will hear the Prime Minister address the climate summit tomorrow, and we will hear what he has to say. But overall, of course, we are hopeful that perhaps this, the effort may lead to an immediate dispersal of the climate damage fund, which is of course essential not just for Pakistan but other developing countries also. We'll be taking a short break, after which we'll come back to talk about what's happening on the home front as far as politics are concerned. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We have with us Dr. Sharmila Faruqi from the PPP. Dr. Sharmila, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's not very audible.
Okay, let me try again, because we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I think there's some issue with my connection.
There is. Overall, as far as the PPP is concerned, we are also looking at, of course, the latest visit of your leadership in Quetta also. Overall, with the elections, of course, manifestos, what is the primary focus as far as the PPP is concerned? Of course, welfare generated earlier on, we've seen the PPP has always, traditionally been more about roti, kapra, makan. Is it going to be a significant, are we going to be looking at a significant change there? Is it going to be a revamping, considering the current situation at this time? What is, the PPP aiming to say to the people at this time before the elections?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, the slogan of Roti, Kapra and Makan is more relevant now than ever. the kind of inflation, unemployment, and poverty levels that has hit Pakistan in recent years, the primary focus again of Pakistan People's Party would be how to provide relief to those people who are now suffering more than ever from this high inflation, the lifestyle that a normal person could afford a few years back is just not possible. And paying inflated electricity bills, the gas bills, the school fees, and of course the prices of essential items that are hitting, that skyrocketing across Pakistan. It is impossible for a salaried person to live a respectable life and feed his children and run his home.
But
So
with a view
now,
to that, Sharmila, I'm going to interject here. As far as the PPP is concerned, with a view to that, are we going to be looking at more concrete economic plans that perhaps for the people at this time? To tell them that how your party, for example, aims to regenerate investment or aims to bring about the kind of changes, the kind of reforms that are the order of the day, without which we won't be seeing sustainable changes overall.
oh, absolutely. We need, of course, primary focus is going to be economic revival. At the moment, everything is at a standstill. There are no local investors. Forget about direct foreign investment. We need political stability in this country. We need a continuation of economic policies for to give confidence to the investor. Unless and until we don't get investment, local as well as foreign, we would not be able to revive, the economic cycle. And to revive the cycle and to bring in about investment and to generate more jobs, we will have to bring in political stability. And that is what we've been talking about for the last so many months, that it's time that we forget about the old politics, old style of politics. We get out of box solutions, we bring in new leadership, we bring in young leadership so that they can motivate people, to get an investment, to have confidence.
Not too long ago, this country, there was a slogan of change. There was a slogan of Naya Pakistan, which we've seen, fail. Now, of course, the country does need change. We all need change. We all need reform. But we need a kind of sustainable plan in place. Linked to this, were earlier, your leadership was talking about there not being a level playing field. Are you now satisfied that there is perhaps a level playing field now? We saw the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab in Balochistan. There were a lot of people joining, electables joining that. We are also seeing that happen with your leadership. Are you overall now satisfied? Is the PPP now satisfied that there is a level playing field in place for the elections?
Well, two things. First of all, as you said, that there was a slogan of change, and people were actually looking forward to that, and they voted for that change, right or wrong. But unfortunately, those were false promises. The youth of this nation was particularly disappointed and disheartened because the promises made were of generating millions of jobs, making millions of houses, eliminating corruption within 90 days, and so on and so forth. The list is endless. But unfortunately, nothing happened except for the fact that all political opponents were put behind bars for even voicing the slightest of disengagement. Now the situation is that how do we motivate that youth which is so disgruntled and is willing to leave Pakistan? So 75%, almost, sorry, 65% of the voters registered as of today are young people, 35 years of age or below. And these are the votes that are going to be very, very instrumental in bringing anyone in power or ousting anyone from power. So we need to respect the ballot, and we need to motivate this youth, this section, a major portion of the voters list. So any party who has programs for the youth, how they will be providing opportunities to them, how they will be generating jobs for them, how they would be training them, that party is probably going to win the elections in 2024, because the youth of Pakistan are now looking towards the general elections and deciding who to vote for and who not to. This is very important. As of today, I feel, and my party feels, that we need a change. We need young leadership. We believe that Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Saab, as a young leader, and the way he has performed as the youngest foreign minister of Pakistan for a very short span of 16 months. I mean, he put Pakistan back on the global map, and the establishment of the climate fund was a big win-win, not only for Pakistan but for all vulnerable countries who have been affected by the negative impacts of climate change. So we've seen him performing extremely well and making the nation proud. So I
So
think
there is,
we
so
feel
you're
that
satisfied
he
that there
should
is
be.
a level playing field now.
Sorry?
So the PPP is satisfied overall that you are being given. I mean, there is a level playing field now for them to, of course, participate and undertake their own election activities with a view to, of course, campaigning for the elections.
Well, as far as level playing field is concerned, we feel that there is one party which is being given special treatment, and they are being preferred over others in so many different matters. Particularly in Balochistan, we felt that the electables who were going to join Pakistan People's Party were told to join PML-N. Similarly, the way Mian Nawaz Sharif came back and he wasn't arrested despite the fact that he was a convicted person, he was allowed to hold jalsa at Minare Pakistan and then go back
But he
home.
has
And the next day, the
subsequently been
Punjab
exonerated in those
government
cases.
suspended his sentence. Sorry?
He's subsequently been exonerated in those cases, I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we feel happy for him. But the fact is that as a convicted person, when you come back in Pakistan, when you've been in exile, once you come back, the courts have not given you relief. Uh, in normal circumstances, any person who has been convicted would have been arrested and taken to jail. But that wasn't the case with Mia Saab. He was allowed to hold the jalsa at Minare, Pakistan, and then go back home. And the next day, the interim Punjab government suspended his sentence, and subsequently, the court exonerated him in one of his cases. Now, the thing is that we've also seen that the governor of Punjab invited him and his party, and there were political talk there. So we feel that one party is being given a preferential treatment. It's not only People's Party who's saying this. If you had read the editorial of Dawn a couple of days back, the topic was repeat telecast. And what it said was that we haven't learned anything from the elections of 2018. We selected one person then, and in 2024, we're going to select another one. And the undemocratic forces which were in force and which People's Party was trying to defeat by establishing the PDM are now trying to defeat the democratic forces. So these are
But
independent news.
Sharmila, perhaps the question now, I think for all political parties, all stakeholders, is that with such a huge number of young voters being added, if that's, if it's really, will it come down to an out-of-box solution or out-of-box solutions that political parties will have to perhaps give to their voters? And with a view to that, you're talking about the young leadership. But there recently have been, correct me if I'm wrong, friction between your young and old leadership. Do you think that's going to be challenging for the PPP to be able to take, perhaps the old, more experienced leadership together with the perhaps Bilawal Zardari Saab leading, or no?
Well, I think there's never a time where one could just get up and say that we've learned everything and we are we are the most accomplished person in this particular profession. Learning process is a lifetime process, and we learn every day. We learn. And when Bilawal Bhutto took oath as the youngest foreign minister of Pakistan, he did not go to any training school before that. And when Shahid Mohattarma Benazir Bhutto took charge as prime minister at the age of 35, she had not been trained anywhere to be the prime minister of Pakistan. But she was one charismatic woman who we all miss, and we hope, and we deeply hoped that if she was alive, things would have been very, very different in Pakistan. So as far as there's always a good combination of the veterans, the experienced politicians, and the younger generation, the young leaders. The younger generation think differently. They believe in different situations and how to deal differently in those different situations. The old politicians, the senior politicians, feel that the things should be dealt with as they've been dealing
But of
with.
course, questions arise when these differences of opinion are publicly aired, which we've seen recently. So in that instance, you think it's going to be challenging for Bilawal Bhutto Zardari sir?
Difference between them. It's a difference of opinion. I would want to deal with a particular situation in my way, which I feel better. My father would want to deal with the same situation in a very different traditional way, like he normally thinks. So it's a difference of opinion between two generations. That does not mean anyone is wrong. But then when we sit together, and as Zardari Saab said yesterday at the Jalsa in Quetta, that whatever that he has learned, he will be transferring that to his son. And that would be an added advantage. Bilawal
Can
Bhutto
there be
Zardari
two
Saab,
ship captains, Sharmila?
from her, he's learned the craft, and he's also learned from his father, and he's still learning from his father. So there's never a dearth of learning here.
But can there be two ship captains in your opinion? There has to be one leader in that sense, isn't that true?
Of course, it's not about being two captains or one leader or one captain. It's about a joint team. It's always a teamwork.
Right.
Uh,
Fair enough.
for a father, his son will always be his son.
True.
And for a son, his father will always be a father. There will always be that source of inspiration and person that he would turn to for advice. An older older veteran, or
Fair enough. Right, right. Thank you so much, Sharmila. Thank you for your very valuable time. Thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, as far as the PPP is concerned, they feel that their leader is young and more dynamic, as we heard Dr. Sharmila say, and they feel that there perhaps is something that the young voter would perhaps want to go for. Of course, as far as the voter at this time is concerned, we are looking at, generally speaking, an economic situation that is leading to despondency, and I think that overall is the reason. Overall, the voter would be looking for a kind of out of box solutions that any political party can offer them. We are, of course, looking at a lot of joinings from both major political parties as far as the VPP, PML-N is concerned. Of course, at this time, it's perhaps a little too early to see the kind of trend that may follow closer to the elections. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.